Did Ukraine just turn Crimea from Russia's proud trophy into a trapped island that cannot breathe? And if that's happening right now, why does it matter more than one bridge, one port, or one headline? Before we go deeper, if you want sharp war analysis without the noise, tap like, subscribe, and share this with one friend who follows the conflict as closely as you do. This isn't really a story about a single explosion. It's about what happens when a territory that once looked secure starts losing its lifelines one by one, and the people inside it feel it in the most ordinary ways. The fuel run gets longer, the lights stay out longer, the signal drops more, the shelves look thinner, and suddenly the place that was supposed to prove strength starts broadcasting vulnerability instead. Crimea matters because it sits at the crossroads of supply, symbolism, and political identity. For Moscow, it's a story about permanence. For Ukraine, it's unfinished business. And when both sides attach that much meaning to one place, every strike there becomes bigger than its physical damage. Psychological, political, a message. So when people say Ukraine is cutting Crimea off from the world, they're really talking about isolating a war machine, forcing Russia to spend more, move slower, defend more weak points at once, turning Crimea from a rear base into a liability. That's the deeper game. Not destruction for its own sake. Dislocation, fatigue, accumulated strain. The kind that doesn't look decisive in one day but changes everything over months. Think about what makes Crimea useful to Russia in the first place. It projects power into the Black Sea. It anchors supply routes. It carries enormous symbolic value. As long as it looks secure, Moscow can present the annexation as settled history. When it looks exposed, that story starts to crack. Now picture daily life under that pressure. You plan errands around outages. You fill containers because water may stop. You avoid long drives because fuel is scarce. Nothing feels stable enough to trust. And a region under that kind of pressure isn't held only by soldiers. It's held by routine. When routine collapses, occupation feels heavier, and fear travels faster than official statements. This is what makes Ukraine's strategy so hard for Russia to solve. A normal defense prepares for one threat, but here the threat is layered. Drones probing air defenses, sea drones threatening maritime movement, precision strikes on key nodes, all tied together by real-time intelligence. The defender isn't just protecting a place anymore, it's chasing uncertainty. And uncertainty is exhausting. Start with land. Crimea depends on constant movement, supplies, personnel, fuel, equipment. When those links are threatened or delayed, the peninsula starts feeling smaller, not in geography, but in freedom of action. Comfort disappears, and war punishes complexity. Then energy. Without stable power, everything gets harder. Communications, repairs, hospitals leaning on backups. A power grid doesn't need to be destroyed to become a problem. It just needs to be unreliable often enough that everyone starts planning around failure. If you're still with me, hit subscribe and type Crimea pressure in the comments, because this next part explains why isolation is often more dangerous than direct assault. At sea, Russia relied on naval dominance around Crimea for flexibility. But cheap, adaptive systems have changed the equation. Maritime pressure doesn't need to sink everything. It just needs to make ship owners nervous and insurers cautious. A route that's technically open but feels dangerous isn't truly secure. And then there's the Kerch Bridge, concrete and steel, but also mythology. For Russia, it says, this is ours. This is permanent. Defending it means layered protection everywhere, all the time, against multiple types of threats. It becomes a resource magnet, pulling defensive energy away from the rest of the theater. Even when it survives, it's expensive. Even when it stands, it forces lopsided spending. Air defense works the same way. It's the shield that lets everything else function normally. Once that shield develops holes, every valuable site gets nervous. And Ukraine doesn't need a free sky. It just needs enough windows, repeated windows, to keep Russia off balance. Behind all of it is data. Who sees first? Who turns a sighting into a strike before the target moves? A truck transfer, a radar relocation, a ship's altered route. None of it means destruction alone, but together it creates a searchable, trackable environment. Surprise becomes harder to preserve. To be clear, this doesn't mean Crimea falls tomorrow. It doesn't mean Russian positions are collapsing at once. What it means is that the cost of holding Crimea is rising, and the ease Russia once took for granted is fading. That shift matters precisely because it's gradual. There's a political cost too. Moscow spent years selling Crimea as settled and secure. Every disruption now lands on top of that promise. A shortage isn't just a shortage, it's a contradiction. And military families feel it as much as soldiers do. When home doesn't feel safe, morale corrodes quietly. That creates a command dilemma for Moscow. Pour more protection into Crimea and thin out other fronts, or economize and risk humiliation in one of the most politically sensitive places of the war. Every choice hurts. That's how a pressure campaign becomes a resource trap. So where does this leave us? Not with a clean victory image. Crimea may still be under Russian control, but control isn't a yes or no condition anymore. It has cost, texture, fragility. And the more those weaknesses show, the more the peninsula stops functioning like a secure prize and starts functioning like a pressured outpost. The real question isn't whether Crimea matters. We know it does. It's whether Russia can keep paying the price of holding a place that now looks less like a triumph and more like a trap. If you want the next deep dive before everyone else, subscribe. Send this to one serious geopolitics friend and comment with the next flashpoint you want broken down next.